Since the beginning of Ill-Conceived, we've kept most of our focus on the United States. That changes with Season 3. We are now going global. We're going to start to take a look at how natalist policies and movements have manifested across the world and how they connect back to the pro-natalist movement in the United States. And where else better to start than with who is credited with jump-starting the modern pro-natalist movement? The now former far-right leader of Hungary, Viktor Orban. My name is June Sternbach.
My name is Josh Foreman.
This is Ill-Conceived, a podcast about natalism. Josh.
Yes.
How are you feeling? You're feeling good. You're feeling great.
I'm spry. I've never felt better.
That makes me really happy to hear. That's I don't know what this intro is. We're just going into it.
We're going into season 3 with bells on.
Yeah.
I had mentioned I was in the hospital, but I was able to get to Chicago and record safely and soundly. But we did have to postpone the live show as a result of me having been in the hospital, needing to recover, etc. But we've got some good news.
Thankfully, it's still on.
Yes.
The live show is going to be July 2nd.
Yes.
Same venue, Lincoln Lodge. So please, if you got tickets for the first one, if you're in town, get tickets to the new one. It's going to be a lot of fun. We cannot wait to see you guys there to do this show, to give you guys the talk.
We've got a link down in the episode notes. And as June was saying, yes, we are giving you the talk. Basically, the concept for this show is that we are going to be getting our hands on a bunch of old, weird literature that is to do with puberty and the sex talk. I'm going to be digging through various cursed evangelical artifacts, trying to maybe even see if I can track down some of the sex curriculums that we talked about in our episode about sex education.
God, yes, we have to.
And yeah, you're going to learn a lot. Some of the things that you'll learn might actually end up being contradictory to some of the other things that you'll learn. Some of them might even contradict real facts. We'll see. I'm sort of in the process of starting to look into materials that we can use for this, but it's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to probably have some sort of an interactive component to it. And as we keep working on it, we will let you know exactly what it is that you can expect. But it's going to be a blast. We're excited to see it.
One thing is for sure, though, by the end of the show, you will know what sex is.
That's right.
I don't know if a lot of people at this point know
I don't know if I
that.
can promise that. I don't know if I can promise that they will know what sex is, genuinely.
They know, okay, maybe they won't know what sex is, but they will know what will tarnish their soul and send them to hell.
Right,
yeah.
June.
Yeah. So both equally important things. Yeah. So regardless, whatever takeaway from that show you get, it'll be very important and life-changing.
Absolutely.
So speaking of being sent to hell, today's episode,
oh my God,
today's episode, it's our first episode of our new season. It's about Viktor Orban, who was sent to hell recently.
Wait, what about the mailbag? What about the world famous mailbag?
I was leading there. I was getting us there.
Okay.
I just wanted that pivot because I can't pivot that to our wonderful emailer. I don't want to say the person who sent us this wonderful email is in hell. He's certainly not in hell.
We don't know.
I don't want him to be. I guess
we don't know that.
Yeah. He might not have saved his soul because he didn't go to our show yet.
Right. That's the other thing. Going to the live show is going to save your soul. I feel like we forgot to mention that.
Yeah. It's like, do you remember well, of course, we weren't there for this, but the Catholic Lutheran split, this is going to cause a new split, a new religious split. Yeah.
We've got 95 sort of theses. We're going to be banging them onto the door of Lincoln Lodge.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yes, please. Before we get to Viktor Orban, we have some mail from our, I think it's, what do they call it? The world famous mailbag?
That's what they call it. That's what they all call it because it's world famous. It's the world famous mailbag. And as always, we read letters from you that you send to us about the show, whatever's on your mind, things in the show that resonated with you. And every week, we will read some of your mail right here on the show. You can send those letters to illconceivedpod@gmail.com. And honestly, we would really appreciate your letters because lately, most of what we're getting is pitches for fake guests. Well, not fake guests, but it seems that we got our email address put into some fucking spam bot somewhere, and we're getting guest solicitations for this is a man who is an expert on mold remediation, and he would really be a good fit for Ill-Conceived.
No, people have been begging the long-awaited mold episode. We're going to start having guests, and we're going to have a guy on here talking about mold. Of all the spam emails we've got, I think that was the funniest one. The
really
only
funny.
one that made me smile. Just the concept of doing a mold.
The show's doing just a hard pivot in general to like all forms of home remediation. We're going to be talking about how to get asbestos out of your walls. We're going to be talking about radon poisoning.
Fuck politics and how it like influences our daily life. It's about mold.
That's
now.
right. This is a home improvement podcast.
But most of those emails just suck and annoy me. So please send us your emails so we can combat the war that's going on in our inbox.
That's right. Because this letter very much did not suck, and I'm going to read it now. Josh and June is how it kicks off, which means also this is the only letter, which means I win the mailbag this week. Let's go.
God. I'm also going to hell.
I was listening to your Tucker Carlson episode, and your remarks about the fascist relationship with fitness really took me back. I've been into martial arts since I was a kid. I noticed at a certain point when I was a teenager that most of the students that weren't children always had weird right-wing politics. It was seldom that I met a student that didn't have his eye on being a cop or enlisting in the military when he was old enough. The core kernel of conservatism is this rejection of the group, right? You're an individual, and you're on your own, and only you can protect you from the savage other. You're fooling yourself if you're taking karate in some strip mall, or God help you, Krav Maga, but I think you get my meaning. A couple of years ago, I decided to give Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu a try after putting it off for so long. I joined a gym with my son and immediately noticed the entire place was a microcosm of right-wing archetypes. An entire family, parents, and their 4 poorly socialized homeschool children used it as a PE option. And to their credit, they were all really, really good at jiu-jitsu. Okay. All very nice people. I never wanted to dig too deeply into their politics, as it would likely spoil that impression. It was never clear, but their whole thing seemed to stem from some sort of religious expectation. I was never able to piece together which religion it was, though I suspect they may have been Mormon or Seventh-day Adventist. There was a homesteader veteran, his feral twin daughters, and his wife, who often posted anti-feminist content to her Instagram.
Hell yes, dude.
There was a guy with the same Jerusalem cross tattoo that Pete Hegseth has, and a sticker on his car that says Deus Vult.
Oh.
The kids' classes all had parents sitting to one side, tabbing on their phones. The boys all had the same weird mohawk haircuts, and their parents were all dressed like they were cosplaying Yellowstone characters. There were parents of students with absolutely gonzo political bents, like the guy who had not one, but several Marianne Williamson campaign tees.
Okay, I defend that person. That has to be some ironic shirt. I fuck with that. I fuck with an ironic campaign shirt.
A Maha weirdo who dropped methylene blue directly into his mouth before class. It made his mouth look like he chewed on a blue pen and it broke in his mouth. Oh, that's the same person. The weirdo is also the Marianne Williamson guy. That's awesome.
I don't defend that person. Never mind.
One of the purple belts was a guy I got along with quite well, who turned out to be a terminally online grind set guy in the style of Andrew Tate and a Joe Rogan fanatic. He introduced me to peptides, which at the time sounded like miracle drugs. Now you hear looksmaxers talking about them and they sound incredibly dangerous. Mr. Purple Belt ordered them from a Discord server that had a rep from a Chinese peptide lab who would hook you up with peptides for Bitcoin.
That sounds awesome.
The entire place was just a MAGA freak show of every variety. I eventually had to break away when Trump won a second time, and everyone spent a couple weeks doing victory laps about it. The head coach posted a lot of transphobic memes in his social feeds, and it bummed me the fuck out. I spent 2 years there and actually enjoyed it quite a bit, but in the end, I felt like I was giving money to my ideological enemies. On the bright side, when I canceled my membership, it turned out that they never fully signed me up, and I was never charged for so much as a single class. So, the joke's on them. Love the show. Keep doing what you're doing. Brian.
Thank you so much for that email. It is always really weird when you come across these characters in real life. Like you and I, Josh, both live in big liberal cities. So we're sort of partitioned away from a lot of these people. You start to go out into counties and you see them in cities every once in a while. but they are a lot more plentiful out in the county. So whenever you do see them in like cities, I don't know if I was telling you when you were in town last, when we went to that coffee shop near my place, where I had mentioned that there was a woman there once that was wearing a hat that said "Make Milk Raw Again." And that just stuck with me. She was there for hours. And I was just like, I wanted to sort of talk to her and like just see what her deal was.
Were you trying to get a raw milk statement from her?
Yeah, I needed her raw milk statement. I needed to know if she carries it on her. But it's like, it's so weird and off-putting that they do exist in real life.
I mean, if you spend time in the fighting community, which I don't, but like for a while, I went to a bar where the bartender was like, did a lot of recreational fighting. There's a lot of these guys in every city, including New York.
Yeah.
Like you go to certain bars in Brooklyn, in Manhattan. It's strikingly common, actually. And I noticed also the UFC fight, which I did not watch, but that would have bummed me out too much. But I saw pictures from it, that fight on the White House lawn, you know? And something that was really striking about that crowd, other than how male it was, which is to say like 97% male, it was also more diverse than you might expect, at least in terms of like age, ethnicity, that sort of thing.
Right.
Because it seems like there is a certain type of young man, it is often young men, though not exclusively, obviously, who treat the world as this place where might makes right. Mm-hmm. And they're so insecure in their own masculinity and their own ability to project force onto others.
Yeah. It is this weird thing where it's right-wingers love individualism, and that certainly manifests in these fitness communities. But it is interesting that it seems like fitness communities really are the only communities that a lot of right-wingers tend to want to be in.
Yeah.
A lot of them are very scared of like people outside or people hanging out together or like just big cities with people in general.
Like, remember when we talked about network states, Balaji Srinivasan's network states thing? He's got that weird little like colony just off of Singapore. And like the thing that you do there is you code all day, I guess, and then the rest of your time is spent at the fucking gym. You remember?
Yeah.
They're obsessed with this shit. I mean, even the term fitness itself implies something, right? Being physically fit, as we also talked about in that episode about the end of men and how there's that big thing about the presidential fitness test and all of that.
I don't think it's a mistake, or I don't think it's an accident, rather, that fitness and masculinity and far-right politics all trend together because they are all sort of a symptom of the same reactionary worldview. Thank you again for that email. Are you ready, Josh? Are you ready to start talking about the man who was sent to hell in an election a couple of months ago? So Viktor Orban, he was the prime minister of Hungary. He was first elected in 1998, but didn't get too much done. It was sort of a shock win at the time. He immediately lost that election next round, but then he once again became the prime minister in 2010 with a landslide, with a much more aggressive agenda in mind this time.
Okay, so like how long is the term of Prime Minister of Hungary?
So just like the United States, it's a 4-year term for the Prime Minister in Hungary. And so when he got in office, the birth rate was 1.25. It was one of the lower rates in Europe at the time. So it was one of the things that was on his mind when he began his agenda. He came up as like a liberal. He went to college. He was sort of like a classical liberal, you know, like Dave Rubin. Dave Rubin would have loved this guy in college because he's a classical liberal. But then when he got a little bit older, he pivoted really hard with his political party, Fidesz, to a Christian national conservative movement, which when he got elected again in 2010, was met with massive success. At the time, you know, I don't know if you remember 2008, 2009, but there was the global recession.
There was, yeah. Detroit almost completely imploded at that time. I remember.
Yeah, there was a lot of just horrible vibes everywhere. Hungary was not safe from this global recession. Longtime left-leaning party in that country was just very unpopular at that point. So just like the United States, people in that country wanted a different party, just a different direction. So we got this Christian national conservative movement led by Orban.
So who was in control before Orban ascended? Was it like a sort of, in a lot of cases, I know it's these sort of like liberal-ish, centrist coalitions. Was it that kind of thing?
It was a left-leaning socialist party at the time. And they just really fell out of popularity during the crisis. It's sort of the thing we see a lot in the United States, I think. People like to, in the United States, attribute a lot to like specific ideology. But when things get bad, people just sort of change like who they vote for. It's
they just get mad at whoever's in power.
Exactly.
Like what I'm seeing actually is that in the 2006 elections, the Hungarian Socialist Party, the MSZP, had 190 seats, which was enough for an outright majority, actually, or something very close to it. Whereas in 2010, they went down to having 59 seats. And then Orban and the Fidesz party took over with 263 seats.
They had a supermajority, essentially. Yeah, no, they really had a fucking landslide election in 2010. Like, it's sort of like, thank you for bringing up those specific numbers, because I think it is really important to note just how popular they were when they got in.
What is 263 divided by 386?
It's like that's 70 almost.
Yeah, that's 68%.
Yeah.
Wow.
Near just a complete destruction of, sadly, the Hungarian Socialist Party before them. Orban got this landslide. He has a much more right-wing turn at this point. He really wants to get some stuff done. So he does a lot to consolidate power in the country. He goes after the media, the economy, like how the economy functions, and just democracy itself. So we're going to get into like a little bit of all of this just to set up how we got to where we are today in Hungary. Right off the bat in 2012, Orban's far-right party passed a new constitution that weakened separate independent institutional checks and balances over the entire political system, and it centralized a lot more power to the executive, to Orban himself.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose when you have like over 2/3 of the legislature in your corner, it's pretty easy to slam through the kinds of changes that would otherwise be pretty difficult.
Yeah, and so before this new constitution, for most laws, for pretty much most things, you just needed a simple majority to pass and repeal laws. But part of this new constitution changed certain laws. They called them cardinal laws, to a 2/3 majority to pass and repeal both those laws.
Which very conveniently is the actual percentage that they had. That's so funny.
It's just right over the edge there. And so obviously that if they pass a law in this first term when they had that majority, it's going to be really hard for new governments to repeal those laws. It is not going to be easy because they will need that same 2/3 majority to repeal those cardinal laws. So that sort of ensures that even if they lose eventually, some of those laws will just be in place. It's sort of a mirror to what the United States has with the, in the Senate, the 60 vote requirement.
Yeah, with the filibuster. Although, you know, it's also funny to think about how the Democrats actually did have a filibuster-proof majority, but then weren't able to whip the people in their coalition in line quite enough to actually make use of it, because unlike fascists, Democrats don't want to win.
Yeah, they sadly just like to kick the can. A lot of them, you know, there's the rotating villain strategy where one of them, at the time, Joe Lieberman, I believe, was one of the holdouts. Yeah.
So they got to push Joe Lieberman out front and everyone went, boo, this guy sucks.
And then nothing got done.
Mm-hmm.
Fascists, they do what they do. They move quick and they consolidate power. They did that with the cardinal laws. Another way that they did that was that they wanted a lot more oversight in the judiciary, so they can retain a little bit more control over elections.
Sure.
And just culturally within the government, they reoriented the country away from Europe and more towards Russia. They became a little bit more EU, like European Union skeptical. They started to make some more deals with Russia, which, you know, even at the time, that was before the war in Ukraine, obviously way before that. But it was Russia was still not very popular at that time, of course. So they were sort of reorienting away from like what I think we all consider, I'm doing like air quotes, the West, like the American West or whatever.
Well, and something that makes this a little thorny, too, of course, is the fact that Hungary is a member of NATO and has been since 1999. And so, at least in theory, their defense, their national defense is predicated on the continued alliance with the West, in big air quotes. But I think culturally, you're right. Like, so much of this is about these cultural alignments, particularly Orthodox Christianity.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think especially doing this show, it's, politics, the actual legislature itself is really important, but something we see so often in the United States, and something I saw just looking at Hungary and Viktor Orban, is so much of this is a cultural agenda too, that downstream sort of trying to shift the culture in their favor.
Because Orban loves our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, right? That's a big thing of his.
Christianity is huge to him, Christian conservative culture. And one of the last things they did with this new constitution is, do you remember those like 200 or so seats that Orban's party won out of like the 376 or however much it was? They actually gerrymandered a lot of those districts and made them larger and lessened the amount of districts that there were. So it made it a lot harder for smaller parties to win. They willingly cut out a lot of their own seats to make their sort of control of them a lot harder to take away. Especially because, I'm seeing this. So there were 386 seats in the National Assembly, but after that Constitution was passed, they went down to 199. Yeah, no, they cut it nearly in half, and they made a lot more election requirements. So to even get on ballots in certain cases, you had to run 76, I believe, candidates within a party to even qualify. So they genuinely, they really made democracy as a thing you engage with a lot harder for smaller parties with a lot less public backing and funding. They really tried to maintain their control as much as possible. So with all of this, I don't know if any of that sounds familiar to you. Maybe in the United States, some of this like attacking of democracy and like wanting to gerrymander a lot of different things. But needless to say, Orban was beloved by the far right across the world, and most notably beloved by Donald Trump and Trump-aligned billionaires and political operatives.
Well, yeah, of course, he's doing the stuff that they all want everybody to be doing, and he's actually using his political clout for that purpose. Like, he's actually directing power toward things that are going to then come back and benefit him and his party on down the line.
Yeah, I mean, how often do we see politicians and right-wingers in the United States talk about, these liberal occupied institutions, they have all of these institutions. And usually that's just not true in the United States. Right-wingers tend to have a lot of the institutions in their favor. But Orban, of course, also had the same critique of the previous party and previous leadership, and really quickly tried to realign that in his favor. And of course, they're going to find that inspirational in like the United States and other far right political parties. And one of the things that people took note in, especially in the United States, was one of Orban's key pillars, which was his pro-natalist agenda that he pioneered and sort of started in like the modern world. He really early on in his first term he presented a slurry, a whole shit ton of different policies. Him coming to the pro-natalist positions he had are sort of like a two-prong thing, I think is what got him there. Is one of them being he did notice the like lower fertility rate, and he did see that as a problem. And he also has sort of the same position that Trump and the far right these days sort of has about immigration, where he is sort of a proponent. He's never really said replacement theory, great replacement theory, but he doesn't want immigrants to come into Hungary. So that's obviously going to make it harder to, have a replacement
increase
level
the population.
Yeah,
right.
So he really leaned into that like Christian conservative, like we are Hungary first, no immigrants, no people from like Africa or anything like that. So it was sort of a two-pronged thing really early in his administration. He was also one of the first major world leaders to really lean against the growing acceptance of the LGBTQ community, in particular trans people. He was kind of the blueprint. There was like a moment in the United States before gay marriage A lot of right-wing conservatives were really anti-gay, very publicly so, very, very vicious about that. But after gay marriage got legalized, it sort of calmed down. And by 2020-ish, it really felt like no one really cared that much about you being gay or trans. But then we look where we're at now, and it is trans rights are being targeted everywhere. They even tried to abolish gay marriage recently, earlier this year.
I've seen polls recently where approval of just the idea of being gay is down. Like morally, the idea of is it okay to be gay in the estimation of conservatives is down like 20% from where it was like 5-6 years ago.
For specifically Republicans.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I've seen that too. And that is sort of like, I think the right in the United States saw what Orban did in Hungary and was like, we need to like attack wokeness. We need to take on everything that is woke. And if they do that, that culture of reactionary transphobia, homophobia will be instilled upon their voters. And
and that's going to help get the birth rates up, right? Because that's what a lot of this stuff comes back to. We see it time and time again, which is that this thing that expresses itself as transphobia, as homophobia, comes down to this broader anxiety about our people, our birth rate, whatever the fuck that means.
Yeah, it is this idea that gay people are making people not breed anymore or something. It's sort of like it is one piece of the pie for them. And that's not to say they are, not everyone in the United States that's homophobic is homophobic because of pronatalism. Some are. But I think that's still important to note that there is this like growing intellectualization of homophobia as it being like, oh, we need to like make sure the birth rate's this way. And that means we can't have gay people. And I think that's an important thing to note. So before we dig a little bit deeper into the specific pronatalist policies, I do want to just go over some of the like other consolidations that Orban was able to achieve while he was prime minister. So specifically with economic power, he took on the free markets in a very aggressive way.
Not my free markets. Don't touch my free markets. They're so free.
They weren't free in Hungary.
Oh, fuck.
I know. See, that's part of the problem, though. Like, both you and I, Josh, are socialists, I think. And you hear free markets, you hear someone taking on free markets, and it's like, okay, that's not inherently that bad. I don't really like
good.
Free
They're
markets.
They're going to finally regulate the fucking market. Yeah.
But no, this is like, he brought Hungary to a very like illiberal state in a very like fascistic way, a right-wing way, like a Nazi Germany type of way where Nazi Germany consolidated a lot of the free markets into the government. And, that's not good. You don't want to see a fascist doing that. That's going to just be bad. So that's sort of what he did. He consolidated private pensions from citizens to help pay off the national debt. And then in turn,
God.
Yeah. Imagine one day waking up and you just don't have a pension anymore. That's kind of fucking crazy. And
sorry, honey. Your pension's gone. Daddy had to pay the creditors. That's insane.
Yeah. And then in turn with those pensions, he bought large stakes in the banking sector, energy companies, and just some different businesses.
That really is just textbook fascism. Yeah.
Yeah. It's sort of what we saw with Donald Trump recently with what company? It was Intel, right? Where he got like a 5% stake with Intel. Do you remember that? Yeah.
I do. Yeah.
This is like what Orban did was like an accelerated, much larger version of Trump doing that. He really exerted that power. He really took control of a pretty significant portion of the economy that way. With this economic fascist agenda, he also really leaned into white identitarianism and anti-immigration sentiment. He, just like Donald Trump wanted to, constructed a border fence to stop refugees and immigrants from more easily traveling into Hungary just at all. He denied migration programs set up by the European Union as an effort to keep out asylum seekers. He enacted the Stop Soros law, which criminalized NGOs, non-governmental organizations, lawyers, and activists from even providing aid or legal counsel to asylum seekers. That was just illegal. And of course, he did the like dog whistle to Soros and all of that. And he was, of course, a massive pronatalist. So he was sort of mirroring a lot of how Donald Trump talks about immigration.
Yeah. Did you see that State Department summary of everybody who has been accepted for asylum in the United States over the course of the past year, and it's 100% white South Africans.
Yeah, I did see that. I think it was like 3 people that were not white South Africans, which that's still like insane. That is the like the priority. Yeah, it's like,
but it's
Josh, you're wrong.
Thousands and thousands.
Yeah, it's like a 99% white South Africans, which is really bad. It says a lot about that. Look, being
my name
the type
is
of
Josh Borman. I feel more qualified than most to say people don't need more people like me in this country. I want to be very clear as well, for the record, I am not those people. My ancestors came over from Holland in the mid-1800s. I have nothing to do with the vile boar.
I have seen people joke about that with your last name before, and I don't know if it was actually just a joke or they actually thought you were from South Africa or something.
It might be a joke. It might not be a joke. I'm here to just correct the record right now.
Just in case. Yeah. So on top of the heavy anti-immigrant agenda that he had, he also cracked down on labor laws. There was one of the most severe that I found while researching is that he increased annual overtime limit to 400 hours. And then I would literally screamed when I saw this. And then let companies take 3 years to pay that overtime, sort of like a kick the can payment system.
That's so good.
Fucking crazy. Imagine getting a job
and
they're
overtime?
like,
any overtime. So like, that's so crazy too, because you just know that like an employer who owes you for overtime, you're already going to be having difficulty with that employer. That's somebody who you're going to be trying to leave. Yeah. You're probably going to be leaving that job. 2 years later, after leaving that job, you're not even going to remember the overtime you're owed, or you're just going to assume you're never getting it back. And that is exactly, I'm sure, how this was designed to work.
I completely agree. It's crazy to me that people accepted labor law changes like this in this government for as long as they did. This government was in power for 16 years.
Right.
This was just one labor change that I saw, but there are dozens, there are hundreds of different things like this. Maybe not as extreme as this, but imagine getting a job and you do overtime and they're like, yeah, we'll pay you in 2 years. That's just, we'll get to it. Don't worry. We'll get back to this one. We'll put a pin in that one. Fucking
just
crazy.
Remembering when I worked for American Apparel, I worked in the stock room and they had you do a whole bunch of mandatory overtime because their inventory systems were so ineffective and worked so poorly, which then just resulted in them having to pay a whole bunch of people a bunch of overtime to do work that none of us should have been doing. Eventually, I was just like at a stock room one night and I just got sick of it and left. And that was it. I was just done working there after that.
You just never came back.
Yeah.
I assume, that this law probably would have prevented you from even doing that. I'm sure people did leave their jobs for some of the horrible situations, but it probably made people a lot less likely to just walk out of the job.
Yeah, or if they did, they weren't going to get their money, right? And so then it's like, well, do I want to hold on to the possibility of eventually getting the hundreds or even thousands of dollars that I'm owed? Or do I just say, fuck it and walk? Either way, it's not going to work out well for the worker.
Yeah, really bad. Really fucking bad. Orban, also, as we mentioned up top, he really leaned in on anti-LGBTQ rhetoric. Right. He viewed the queer LGBTQ community as a direct attack on traditional family values, and was one of the reasons why he thinks fertility rates have been falling. This embrace of secular, like a more secular worldview in particular. Yep. Queer people, of course, fall under like a more secular world, right. Of course. So that queer people, gay people were really under the microscope under Orban's government. Before we move on, Josh, does any of this sound familiar?
Yeah, it sounds like Dr. James Dobson.
Yeah.
Rest in piss.
Yeah.
And obviously, our Lord and Savior, God King, Donald J. Trump.
This is sort of the thing that I learned, and it really ingrained in my head that this was all before Trump became president. Mm-hmm. A lot of this was before Trump became president. Some of it was while he was president, and some of it was during Biden. But it's sort of weird to find the blueprint, the literal blueprint of where modern American conservatives are and how they can function in a government in Hungary here. I always knew Hungary and the far right in America had a close relationship under Orban, but I didn't really realize just how tight and ideologically similar they were and how they influenced each other.
Yeah, and the billionaires of the world were taking notice. They were seeing what Orban was doing for Hungary and saying to themselves, damn, they're doing the fuckboy thing. They're rubbing their hands together. They're like laying their shoulders back and forth and they're like, break me off a piece of that shit, honey.
Yeah, it's a lot of benefits I could get from joining the cause here. Yeah. So that's another thing, of course. The billionaires in Hungary fucking loved Orban. He ensured and helped a lot of his close billionaire friends buy up a lot of private media organizations. And they, together, the billionaire oligarchs and Orban's government, consolidated the media.
This all sounds very Russian as well. It's very really Russian. Reminding me of the stuff that Putin was doing sort of in the first part of the new century.
100%. And of course, Orban and Russia were very close while he was the leader. And I mean, even now these days under Trump's second term, this is sort of, in some cases, not as explicit, but just about the same thing with, the CBS takeover and destruction and just very similar things that we're seeing.
Absolutely.
CNN.
I mean, it fucking blew my mind. Like, I somehow didn't realize that fucking UFC fight on the White House lawn was a Paramount Plus exclusive. But of course it was. Of course it was. Of course.
Fucking crazy.
This is pure crony politics and corrupt politics where if you get yourself close to the leader, he'll carve you off another piece of that cheese.
Yeah, that market share your market share will increase if you align yourself with the great leader, with Orban, with Donald Trump. We didn't see that as much in Trump's first term, but now in this term, we are really seeing that sort of like fascist billionaire takeover of critical media.
Well, there's just so much less standing in his way.
There is, yeah.
And I'm seeing so many parallels here to Orban as well, where it's like, he wouldn't have been able to do all of the things that he was doing had it not been for passing that new constitution when he had that durable majority. And similarly, Trump, he's only able to do a lot of the things that he is doing now because the theoretical opposition in the Senate is unable to get their shit together to stop him. And even though the support in the House is not exactly unified for him, nor are they broken up enough that they are willing to do anything to stop him. Yeah. And obviously the unitary executive, the actual power of the White House has only grown over the course of the past 30, 40 years as the Congress and the Supreme Court have given more and more and more power to the president in the name of fighting terror. Yeah. And this is it all gets us to this point. You don't need a full-on new constitution, but if you've been chipping away at those checks and balances over time, it's going to lead you to the same basic place.
Because it is in the American system, it is a little bit harder to change the Constitution. You need, I believe...
It's a lot harder to change the Constitution.
Yeah, I think it's what you need 36 states to submit for a new convention.
I'm not sure about a constitutional convention, but in order to even get an amendment through, you have to get 2/3 of the House and the Senate and all state legislatures.
Good luck doing that these days.
It's not happening.
Holy shit. Yeah, not happening. So yeah, Trump has to take a little bit different of an approach, and I do think that's why it's maybe going a little bit slower than with Orban's consolidation. But Trump is still managing, and it's not even just Trump; it's every U.S. president cracking down on all of our different rights, especially with the surveillance state and whatever else it might be. But for some examples of different media that Orban took over really quick, in 2020, a liberal broadcast station called Club Radio was denied its broadcasting license and just basically couldn't broadcast anymore because it was just straight up denied. In 2021, an Orban-aligned oligarch purchased an independent-aligned news website called index.hungary or HU, and then they essentially just fired all the top staffers to replace them with a lot more sympathetic staffers.
Okay, this just sounds like CBS.
Yeah, exactly. It's very CBS. And then another example, there was a very left-wing socialist newspaper called, I looked this up how to pronounce it, but I'm going to do my best.
Let's hear it.
I believe it's Nepzabadzag. I think it's Nepzabadzag. I'm so sorry.
Hungarian listeners, illconceivedpod@gmail.com. Send us an email. Let us know how we did.
Nepzabadzag. I think I got it. but it was completely discontinued when it was bought by a childhood friend. Like they went to school together of Viktor Orban.
Okay, that just reminds me of the Alex Jones, like the other company that put the bid info for InfoWars.
Yeah, Roger Stone's
other
company.
Than The Onion was like just friends of Alex Jones. Yeah.
Yeah. Those aren't the only examples though, but these are just some of the more, these are just some of the examples I found of a lot of the media consolidation. Again, Josh, does any of that sound familiar? CBS, CNN, all of these different fucking things. All
yes,
familiar.
I'm pretty sure this is exactly the same thing that's happening in this country right now. Yes.
I think so. And then, so let's get to we're a podcast about natalism, right?
Yeah, let's get to the meat and potatoes. Do you have a list for me or something? What's going on?
I sort of have a list. I do actually, coming up in a minute. But let's start to talk about some of Orban's natalist strategies. Orban has been touted by a lot of the people in the United States as what a government can do to design and implement pro-natalist policies. The main problem that I found while doing research on this, though, is that these policies just have not worked, basically.
Shit.
I know, surprise, these really odd, bad policies don't really do anything. So let's take a look. Let's take a closer look. Let's bring our fucking magnifying glasses to this. So when he got into government, like I mentioned before, the fertility rate was 1.25, which he thought he could fix. The Orban government spent a lot of its resources on supporting its pro-natalist agendas. About 5.5 of its GDP annually was spent on its pro-natalist policies, which is crazy.
5%?
5.5%. A lot of its GDP. Yes, that much.
I want to get a comparable for this in terms of like the annual USA budget.
Yeah.
Like what would be a comparable percentage in terms of U.S. federal spending?
Yeah, good idea.
You said 5.5%?
Yeah.
That's like the VA.
Jesus Christ. We spend a lot on the VA.
We do. It's about 6% of our budget. No, sorry. That's 6% of the government budget. That's not 6% of GDP.
Oh, shit. Yeah.
The federal budget is like 7.4 trillion.
Mm-hmm.
But the GDP of the United States is 31 trillion.
Okay, yeah.
That's the entire output of the entire economy.
Yeah, so of the GDP, so the GDP in Hungary is 271 billion. So 5.5% of that amount is how much they spent on their natalist policies. Yeah. Yeah, it's a lot of fucking money.
Hold on, I really want to see if I can find a comparable to that because that is so much money.
Yeah.
What was the defense budget?
That's got to be
32 trillion.
That's got to be so much.
So what's 5% of that? That's $1.6 trillion. Oh my God.
So it would be like if the United States spent $1.6 trillion, you said, on natalist policies?
If I am doing my math right, yes. That's like 1.5 times the fucking defense budget.
Yeah, they were all in on this, dude.
They
were all in on these policies.
Staggering number.
Yeah, it is an absurd amount. He really prioritized this agenda in his government. Thank you for looking at that comparison because it's a lot of fucking money. So, alongside the amount of money they spent for these policies, there was also the cultural narrative that they wanted to distill to the population, especially with these new captured media outfits that they got with a lot of the media consolidation. They wanted this pro-traditional family agenda, which would come up against the more secular liberal pro-LGBTQ ideals. They would call those dangerous.
Sure.
The Speaker of Parliament once said, "We would like our daughters to consider bearing us grandchildren as the highest form of self-realization," which is, a very explicit embrace of traditional gender roles, I would say.
We hear people say stuff like this on this show all the time. They can't stop saying shit like this because they don't see women or even girls.
Yeah.
I mean, they're saying daughters, right? So they're actually probably talking about girls at this point. They can't see them as anything other than incubators.
Yeah. It's sort of, they really did want to have this idealized version of like traditional nuclear family, push against this sort of feminist idealized world where, women are in the workplace. Women are meant to have children in a lot of Orban's political party's movement. So those policies, the big policies that they brought in, they called this the 7-point family protection action plan for a family-friendly Hungary. So we have a list.
Boy.
We have a list of about 7 policies that we're going to go through. So the first policy, one of the big ones, was that they had a housing policy with a lot of different qualifications. Families would be awarded either a set amount of money or lowered mortgage rates if you promised or had a certain amount of children. The more children you had, the better, of course. One of the parents has to be under the age of 40. You cannot have a criminal record. You have to have a history of Social Security payments. And the children have to live with the parents claiming the housing policy with tax refund possibilities if they spend any money on home maintenance.
Okay.
So a lot of qualifications here. But I think the funniest part about you'll see this in some of the different policies here, though, is that you can just promise to them that you'll do this, and that works. You just,
Interesting.
like, we'll have a kid in like a year, and they'll be like, okay, here's some money.
Well, and like if you're getting a discount on like your mortgage rate, once you sign, if it's anything like it is in the United States, once you sign, that shit's locked in. Mm-hmm. So like all you have to do is, I guess, promise that you're going to have a kid, and you get like a discount.
It's what it sounds like. Yeah, you just essentially just promise them, and they're like, okay, here's some subsidies for a home. Here's some money. Really weird system that they just allowed a promise.
Well, this just doesn't seem very practical at the end of the day. And also just thinking about what it incentivizes too, this just doesn't really make sense to me.
No, I agree. You know what, Josh? We don't agree a lot, but we do agree that natalist policies are
we usually are at each other's throats on this show, famously.
Yeah, we can never agree on whether or not pro-natalist policies are good and bad. So another policy that they put forward in the 7-point family protection action plan was they awarded first-time marriages an allowance to encourage having children. So they would just give you money and we're like, you should have a kid now. And they thought that would sort of encourage people to actually, have more than 1 or 2 kids.
I don't think it would do that.
No.
I think that a lot of people would just take the money and buy a TV, is my guess.
Yeah, I mean, you have to think about it this way. I mean, like, this was fresh off of like a recession, a global recession. Economy's not looking really good. People in Hungary, not just the United States, were living paycheck to paycheck in a lot of ways.
Right.
Especially when you look at some of these labor law changes. Like, it was not comfortable living.
More realistically, you're going to be using that money to pay off debts.
Absolutely. So it's another policy that's like, okay, like, I guess I'll take money, like, if I get married. Sure. I don't really know if that does what they intended, though. Another one is that they had a few different policies, but essentially encouraged and helped cover costs for IVF operations.
That would explain why the spending got so out of control if they were covering IVF. That's just fucking expensive.
Yeah, they really saw a lot of value in IVF. Another one is families would get monthly tax deductions tied to the amount of children they had.
I remember we talked about this on the show before.
Yeah, very, very briefly we talked about it. And it was essentially if you have more kids up to a certain cap, I believe, I think it's 3, it might be 4. It was kind of unclear when I was reading it. But it was like around 3 or 4 children, you have more benefits. So it's sort of encouraged to have up to like 3 or 4 children based off of these benefits. On top of these family tax deductions, they also implemented a lifetime income tax exemption for mothers raising 4 or more children, which is
a full exemption?
Full
like
exemption.
You never have to pay income tax for the rest of your life at all, ever?
Yes. Yeah, the fucking nuts to do that. I think that's fucking crazy. I really don't like a lot of I'm sure you've seen this recently too in the United States. Even liberals, like Democratic politicians, have been like, we need to cut taxes for service workers in these industries, and it's like, no, we really, we don't need to do that. We shouldn't be cutting taxes. That's really bad. And they did that for mothers in Hungary. they got rid of them for the income tax, at least.
That's such a great way to just punch a gigantic hole through your budget for generations. Think about all of the revenue that you are missing out on when you do something like that. That's insane.
Yeah,
that's like Chicago selling the parking meters levels of like not thinking ahead.
Yeah, really just odd policy. See, I think the thing is with a lot of these is it's like they're odd. They're just, some of them kind of make sense, I guess, if you're a pronatalist, but some of them are just weird. Like, why does a promise work for that first one? And why would you get rid of income tax? It's very short-sighted. They really seemed to think they just needed to do absolutely anything possible to get that birth rate up. And they did fucking anything.
And the net effect of all of this, I suppose, is that you end up with this society where parents are treated as a privileged class.
Yeah.
Which I guess I could see working, although you're saying it didn't really work. But also to me seems to really be missing the point, which is that it's not about parents being this particular put upon and economically disadvantaged class. It's about how no matter who you are, it's already hard enough to get ahead. And so an economy that allows for anybody to achieve self-actualization however they want to do it is likely one that is going to result in higher fertility because of the fact that you want to actually bring more people into such a world, I think.
Yeah, this sort of seems to be just dancing around the issue of the economy sucks and people are not doing well, and sort of just putting Band-Aids on a much more broader issue. Like, I think the thing that we see so much in the show, especially when we dig into specific policies, is whenever they try to do these, Trump accounts, all of these different, fucking bells and whistles, it's sort of missing the real problem in society. It's not really, the birth rate that is a problem. It's just that people cannot fucking survive in the economy.
Yeah, the fertility rate is a symptom of other bigger picture problems.
Yeah.
And when you're spending money on these weird little ticky-tacky solutions, that is all money that could be going into other things that are not getting funded.
Yeah, like more robust infrastructure or, public transit or whatever. Right. And I feel like these policies layered on top of the cultural agenda that Orban had in particular, it's sort of doing this thing that we see in the United States with J.D. Vance does this a lot, or he has done this sometimes here and there, where he will talk about how families are under attack. Families are the most maligned group in the entire country, in the entire world. No one likes families these days. And it's that's not why people aren't having kids. People are having kids because families are being attacked. That's just some culture war bullshit.
That's some bullshit. That's stupid.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do think it's very funny, though, the idea of a guy who, every time he walks down the sidewalk and sees a family walking a kid in a stroller or whatever, goes, families.
I hate those. They start booing. They start sneering at the child. The thing everyone does when they see a kid in public. All right, the list. Let's get back to this list. Another one of these policies that Hungary enacted was, so this was before, to give credit, but it was sort of beefed up under Orban, but this was a policy a little bit before Orban got into office. This was a baby bond system that started in 2006. Families would get 42,500 forint, which is the Hungarian currency, deposited to a special bond account per child, which can be claimed when the child turns 18. Converted to US dollars, this would be about $137 today per child.
Sure. I mean, that's the principle. You've also got interest on top of that. Yeah. I suppose I'm just actually now seeing what would that be at let's say a 4% interest rate.
Yeah.
And we're compounding quarterly. So that'd be more like $280. But yeah, that's not a life-changing amount of money by any stretch of the imagination.
But it is, it is an amount of money that you do certainly get.
Yeah.
Again, sound familiar? Kind of like baby bonds, like the Trump accounts.
Yeah.
Pretty weird stuff.
My question is, the Hungarian baby bond, question number one, is it Michael Dell giving you that money? And question two, can my child's employer contribute extra money to that account? Those are the two things that I want to see happen.
Yeah, no, maybe. I don't think that ever was implemented, and they'll never have the time to, or since Orban's gone, sadly. Michael Dell will never get their grubby little hands over there.
All right, just going to be our money instead.
Yeah, it'll be our babies' money.
Our babies?
Our babies.
The ones listening right now?
Yeah, our babies.
Aw.
So policy 6. If you had more than 3 kids, you could get a car purchasing grant. It would just,
fuck off.
Yeah. They would just be like, okay, here's a grant, here's some money. All right. for a car.
Culture ass bullshit.
Real
Fuck
bad.
you.
Real bad stuff. They also instituted a policy for grandparents' leave, where the grandparents could claim childcare payments to assist with childcare at home instead of like the parents getting those childcare payments.
That actually doesn't seem like a terrible idea to me.
No, I kind of like it. I mean, that one in particular is kind of nice, especially because, in society, both parents typically work these days.
Right.
Grandparents, usually by this point, when their kids are having kids, probably retired. It doesn't hurt.
And it's not an uncommon arrangement either. I was just back in Michigan hanging out with a friend of mine from high school, and he was talking about how he and his wife both work. His wife only works a few days a week these days, but then on those days that she's working, it's either his parents or her parents who come over and take care of the kids.
Yeah, it genuinely, of all the different policies in this 7-point plan, it's sort of the one that just makes sense.
Yeah.
It's like they should definitely keep it. This should probably be a thing. I'm sure, I didn't look deep enough into it, but I'm sure there will be someone that emails us and is like, no, but there's actually this like loophole in here that fucks over people.
I'm sure there is.
But like on the surface, that sort of just makes sense that a lot of families will raise children together. So, Josh,
yes,
they really fucking thought that they were cooking with this. They were confident. They were aggressive. 5.5 of their GDP.
You're telling me that if I have 3 kids, I get a free car?
Yes.
Fucking the Price is Right ass policy.
Look under your seat. Yeah. Very important thing to note, though, of course, with this agenda, and obviously Orban's very reactionary government, gay marriage is not legalized in Hungary, so these benefits are for heterosexual couples only. Gay people cannot get any of these.
Right.
So very important to note, there were really no opportunities for any gay people or trans people or anyone under the umbrella in this government.
Sure, but if a straight couple just promises, and they really promise really hard that they're gonna do it, then that's okay.
Yeah, just a little pinky promise. Yeah, Orban, we'll pinky promise. We'll do it. I promise. I swear. I didn't look around too closely to see if there were a lot of people that promised and never actually did, but I'm sure there were probably some people that never had kids and just like promised they would to get some of these benefits.
So I am looking right now on a map of all of our downloads, and I am seeing that last month we got 21 downloads in Hungary. So
oh my God.
We've got at least a few Hungarian babies. We also got 18 downloads last month in Romania.
Oh my God.
And 17 in Serbia and 6 in Croatia. So I will also say, if there are any of the listeners in those countries who want to send us an email to dunk on the Hungarians, illconceivedpod@gmail.com, send us your letters.
So I mentioned before, these policies didn't really work. I found 2 really interesting graphs that I think sort of outline fairly well just what happened during this Orban era. So that first graph that I have there from our friends at the Cato Institute. We love them, folks.
Yes.
We love them.
The thing about the Cato Institute is clearly some of the conclusions that they are going to draw are going to be bizarre and wrong. Yeah. But generally speaking, they're using good data.
Yeah, there's never really been a point where I've looked at Cato Institute graphs and been like, this is fabricated.
Right.
Typically, they come to different conclusions with data sometimes, but they're generally not lying.
And I'm seeing the graph visualization is provided by Cato, but the actual source for this graph is statistics from the Hungarian Central Statistical Office.
Right. Yeah. So what we're looking at is the total fertility rate in Hungary from the years 2010, which is when Orban was elected, and up to 2025.
So can I just tell a little story here about what I'm seeing in the data? So I'm seeing it bottoming out in 2011 at 1.23. Oh no. We got to get those birth rates up.
Got to have more babies.
And initially, it actually looks like what Orban is doing works pretty well. It jumps up in 2012 to 1.34. It keeps going up. In 2016, it's 1.51. Kind of stays flat for a little while and then goes up again. In 2021, it peaks at 1.61. But then it plummets. Mm-hmm. And by the time you get to 2025, we're back down to 1.31, which is almost right back to where we started.
So I think it's really interesting that Orban came in right at that recession, the 2010s, bad economy, just everything's really bad. That birth rate's really low. I'm sure people remember what happens in like 2021.
No, what happened?
COVID.
Oh, right. That's what happened.
Yeah.
Right,
There's this thing called
2020,
COVID,
2021. Forgot.
Economic shock. Things have gotten just continuously worse since then. These policies really don't seem to work. For this graph in particular, to me, it seems like the birth rate sort of trends with a little bit stronger of an economy. Right. At least as far as I can tell.
If it was correlative with these policies, you wouldn't see this kind of precipitous drop after 2020.
Right.
Because the policies themselves didn't go away, right? If anything, they just kept adding more policies, even in that final term from 2022 to 26.
Yeah. And I think a part of it is this thing like early on, there probably was an increase because if you announce anything, if something new politically, just in any scenario, if you announce something, it will sort of be at the front of people's minds. People will take advantage of that for a while.
Yeah, but the novelty wears off, doesn't it?
Yeah. And that probably also just happened. That it was
you're right.
Right.
These policies at the end of the day aren't really policies, they're gimmicks.
Yeah.
And a gimmick isn't going to be sustainable.
No. And it really didn't seem like these were, especially when you look over. I think this graph is almost more fascinating.
Yeah.
Laying that birth rate that Josh just went over with the neighboring countries, Slovakia, Czech Republic, Poland, Hungary is following the same exact trend over the same time periods as those other countries and is lower than, I believe, Slovakia and Czech Republic by the end. Mm-hmm. So it's like with all of these policies, with this entire, I like that you called it a gimmick agenda. It's sort of, these are gimmicks. These are not actual real things. These are not real policies. These are gimmicks.
I would also be curious to hear why the Czech Republic peaked so much higher. I'm seeing here in, it looks like 2021 or 22, they were all the way back above 1.8 in terms of their fertility rate. And then again, after the pandemic, just plummeted.
Every single one of these countries
plummeted.
And
I suppose the Russian war also has something to do with it. That's probably a big piece of this, actually.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's another thing that I sort of figured was a part of this. Just like the proximity to the war in Ukraine and then the COVID economy, just I think are going to be much more impactful than any governmental gimmick that they sort of give out to the public. Because those are real things that really affect a lot of fucking people.
And the invasion of Ukraine was at the beginning of 2022. And when you see it really nosedive, it's actually not at the beginning of the pandemic, interestingly. It's roughly around when Ukraine came under Russian assault. It makes sense.
It does. I mean, that also affected the economy too. And that, just a lot of these things are just always going to override some of these Orban policies. I think one of the things I've learned most doing this show, Josh, is that, there's a lot of people on the right that are trying to be like, if we do this, and this policy, we'll get the birth rate up this way. And it's like, no, that's not really going to do it. It's really just good. Like no war, can't have wars, can't have bad economy.
Can't have pandemics.
No. Can't have disasters. Can't do that. So with all of this, it's just simply reorienting a culture into an anti-immigrant, like pro-white identitarianism, anti-LGBTQ, and traditional Christian values doesn't really fucking move the needle. It can change people's minds, sure. It can make people more reactionary, but what does that get you? That's not going to get you more people having children.
This reminds me also of when we talked about Quiverful back in season 1, where you have some of these diehard evangelicals who are very dedicated to just the idea of having a bunch of children for the kingdom, but they have difficulty expanding this thing out beyond a fairly quixotic movement because just really loving God or whatever isn't a reason to have kids.
No.
It's just not.
It just won't work on even the average religious person.
Yeah, you have to have your brain wired a very special kind of way for that to work for you, honestly.
Yeah.
And it has more to do with, I think, your inclination towards strict authority and order than anything else.
100%. So there's this really important segment I found from this recent piece in BBC that they wrote about Hungary's natalist experiment and their attempts to boost their birth rate. Josh, do you want to read this little segment that I have here?
Yeah, sure. So this article talks a bit about what's going on and has been going on in Hungary, their policies, the way that those things have worked. And then it sort of starts to go into a little bit of international comparison to be like, well, why is this not working, essentially? Mm-hmm. France, by contrast, has resisted some of Europe's fertility decline. Its rate of 1.6 is among the highest in the EU. It is comparatively high public spending and a greater focus on work-life balance than many of its neighbors. South Korea, one of the lowest fertility rates in the world, does not have that flexibility. For men, there is this kind of traditional notion of breadwinners, so they often come from home very late at night, says Sabatka. This is referring here to Tomas Sabatka, who works for something called the Vienna Institute of Demography. This is punishing for both women and men, but also for family life. Child rearing is left to women. Women also face anticipatory discrimination, he adds. Often women are either withdrawing from the labor market or getting into part-time or unstable jobs around the time when they have children. Similarly, flexibility at work, maternity leave, is not present in Hungary. Then there's a quote here from somebody named Eva Fodor, who is the co-director of the Democracy Institute at Central European University. She says, even state-owned companies are not flexible. They do not take into account the fact that men and women both may have responsibilities outside of the labor market.
That's fucking crazy to me that they don't have maternity leave. They have all of these like fuck ass policies.
Well, neither do we.
Yeah, no, that's true. And I mean, I think that's like a big portion. I think it's almost by design in Hungary's case, because they could have addressed that.
It absolutely is by design. It gives the game away in terms of what's really going on here.
Yeah, I think it's heavily implied that they do probably want women to leave the workforce. And this sort of like masculinization of the workforce and the workplaces we've seen a lot in Trump's second administration, sort of like this prioritization of masculinity everywhere possible.
Among this kind of person, there's the sense that women being in the workplace, not only have they invaded and colonized the domain of the traditionally masculine by daring to work, question mark, they've also desecrated this space, right? Men can't do their work anymore because these floozies come in with their tits popping out of their dresses or whatever. And
distracting everyone.
Exactly. And I can't work because my eyes are too busy going, auga, auga, and popping out of their sockets. Well, my face becomes redder and redder from the bottom to the top. And then the top of my head blows off like a steam whistle.
That's exactly what's happening. Yeah. And it's also a lot of like the fact that people do still need to have like both, like in a marriage, both people probably still need to be working in the workplace. People cannot get by with one income really anymore, just the way that the economy and world has gone.
Right.
Everything's gotten very expensive. If you can't even get maternity leave, people are probably just not even going to have children. It is just so striking to me that a country that prides itself so much on its natalist agenda can't even do that. I think is like so telling.
Because it's not about the women. It's not about taking care of the women. It's not about the children either. It's about the men.
Always. That's a good look as to how Orban's agenda kind of failed. It really didn't move the needle. Where they're at today is exactly where they started. And now Orban is no longer in government, which is, I think, fairly interesting too. But I think looking at all of this, one of the more interesting aspects of Orban's Hungary is its direct and blatant connections it had with the American far right. Donald Trump, of course, in particular, I mean, he's always going to be the most notable connection. Of course, he's sort of the leader of the global far right at this point.
He's never met a despot he didn't like.
Exactly. Especially if they're handsome men. Oh, my God.
Especially.
I don't think he's ever called Viktor Orban handsome or was particularly attracted to him, though. He might have. But Donald Trump usually likes very masculine, fit men. Yeah.
Yeah, he is unfortunately a bi king, and we must stand. I'm not happy about it either. I'm just
No, he is sadly the first open bisexual president in U.S. history. So Trump loves Orban. Anytime Orban comes up, expressed how much he loved him. Marco Rubio recently in a speech, called the relationship that they had the golden age of the relations between both nations. And it's precisely due to how Donald Trump feels about Orban as a leader, as he says in this clip.
You know, the relationship, you talked about the golden age, which is not an exaggeration. The relationship between the United States and Hungary today is as close as I can possibly imagine it being. And it's not just close rhetorically, it's close in action and things that are actually happening. And I think some evidence of that is here today in the agreement that we've just signed that builds on a historic meeting that we had in November at the White House that is important to understand. We are entering this golden era of relations between our countries, and not simply because of the alignment of our people, but because of the relationship that you have with the President of the United States. I don't think, it is any mystery, and should not be a mystery to anyone here, how the President feels about you, how he interacted with you in his first term as president, and now in his second term as president. That relationship's grown even closer. And it's important to understand how important the relations between leaders are to the relations between countries. We are, at the end of the day, we are still human, we are still people, and that person-to-person connection that you've established with the president has made all the difference in the world in building this relationship and in hopefully growing this relationship even more.
President Trump also heavily invested in Orban's success, encouraging and directing a lot of U.S. investment into Hungarian industries. That is not anything new. We've seen Trump do that as rewards to places like Argentina and El Salvador.
Right.
For he loves to assist his allies.
Yeah, Argentina, the future home of Peter Thiel. I don't know if you saw that. Did you see that?
He fucking moved to Argentina. He's like, I'm scared about the future of America's politics. It's like, I'm sure you fucking are, bitch.
I bet you are.
Oh my God, that fucking guy. But yeah, no, Trump loves to reward different countries' leaders for tying themselves to him.
In that speech that we just heard that clip from, that is Marco Rubio in Budapest. And it's just so interesting the way that the State Department has worked under this administration. Yeah. Again, this Trump administration specifically. Mm-hmm. You didn't get these very weird and over-the-top shows of direct support from the United States in this way, in like very personal terms. Traditionally, that is not the way that the United States has conducted itself in world affairs outside of the context of like the special relationship with the UK and I guess our friendship with Israel.
Yeah. Yeah, that is sort of, especially comparing to the first administration, first Trump administration, there were a lot more establishment figures, a lot of norms-based figures in his admin at that time. And you just really don't see those in this one.
It's just a different way of talking about things. And it gets me time and time and time again.
They're leaning into this like very masculine energy, this very sort of might makes right energy. I don't know if you saw the other day, JD Vance, of course, on Twitter, quote tweeted in a post about, I think it was made by some MLB account. The owners of, I believe, San Francisco's baseball team talked to some of the players on Pride Night. Like there were 3 players that wore hats.
They wrote a verse from Genesis on their ball caps for Pride Night to show that they disagreed with gay or whatever.
And so the owners of that team were like, hey, you shouldn't be homophobic.
I mean, it's fucking insane to do that in San Francisco.
I know, it's like, what do you expect? It is a very queer area.
It's the gay city.
Yeah.
Or at least it was before tech ruined it.
Yeah. And JD Vance quoted that saying, Trump won in 2024. We don't have to do this anymore. And it's like,
shut up.
It is this constant might makes right.
I cannot wait until these mewling little fucking quislings are silenced and we no longer have to hear from them.
I'm just so sick of this shit. If it wasn't so actually, like if a lot of this didn't just impact so many people, especially people I know, like there is actually a lot of action behind these words. It's just like, put aside those actions, it's just so eye-rollingly annoying.
It's
like, actually, it's like the same fucking energy. Like,
bro, you posted cringe. You are going to lose subscriber.
It's just so exhausting, and not even in a I'm triggered way. It's just like I am genuinely exhausted looking at these people say these sentences.
No, it's like somebody like getting up in your face and being like, hey, what are you gonna do? You gonna hit me? You gonna hit me? Huh? What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do about it?
No,
like that
I just
fucking
don't
guy,
care.
like that fucking guy who was trying to provoke me into fighting him in Chicago, who I told you about, where he just come to be like, what are you gonna do? Huh?
Yeah.
What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? I was like,
Nothing, dude. Like
Nothing?
maybe later, but
I should have kissed him.
So, of course, Marco Rubio was in Budapest talking about the relationship Hungary and the United States has. J.D. Vance was sent out to Hungary to campaign for Viktor Orban in this recent election that took place April 2026. And during the rally he was in person in front of Hungarians. He called Donald Trump on the phone.
What?
He calls him, and then Trump on the phone through the microphone that J.D. Vance is holding up to it, starts talking about how Hungary is no longer being invaded under Orban.
Mr. President, you are on with about 5,000 Hungarian patriots, and I think they love you even more than they love Viktor Orban.
Well, I can't believe that. I can't believe that because I love Hungary and I love that Viktor. I'll tell you, he's a fantastic man. We've had a tremendous relationship. And he does a job. Remember this, he didn't allow people to storm your country and invade your country like other people have and ruin their countries, frankly. He's kept your country good. He's kept Hungarian people in your country. And he's done a fantastic job. And let me tell you, I like him a lot, but if I didn't think he did a good job, I wouldn't be making a call like this. But boy, that sounds like a big crowd, and that sounds like my kind of people.
So there was a lot of J.D. Vance endorsed Viktor in Hungary. Donald Trump endorsed Viktor Orban also. There was such a concerted effort to ensure that he won this election. It was really important for the United States to continue this really close relationship. I feel like for the average American, this was sort of under the radar. I feel like for such a notable diplomatic relationship, it just wasn't really talked about or I feel like people didn't really tune into just how close these two countries were. It's sort of like a version of Nazi Germany and Japan in World War II.
Yeah, I would argue it's a little closer to Nazi Germany and Italy, where it's you've got the sort of secondary power that sort of has its own sphere of influence, but at the end of the day is definitely not on equal footing with its bigger, badder big brother.
It's much better comparison. And I think it's so interesting how Trump has utilized that sort of relationship style, like Germany-Italy, Nazi Germany-Italy relationship style. I mean, he did that he is doing that with Argentina, with El Salvador. Yeah. I think El Salvador is the most
especially
insane and interesting one, where he uses a lot of these countries as satellites. And of course, Israel, too. Israel, for most of the United States history, has functioned as sort of a satellite region within the Middle East. Yeah.
I'm just looking at pictures of Javier Milei again. His fuck-ass haircut is so funny.
What a weird dude. So it's impossible to talk about the connection between Hungary and the United States without mentioning everyone's favorite maniac, Rod Dreher.
Yes. But then also, when I saw this in the outline, I was like, June, we could spend an entire other hour at least just talking about Rod. Maybe we should save a lot of this for the B-side.
I think we are going to, because I have looking at I'm sure you see what I have here, Josh. I have just a page about Rod Dreher. I can write so much more about Rod Dreher. I'll dig into him a lot more, and we'll talk about him in particular and his relationship to Hungary, because it is so weird and explicit. And fascinating. So we'll talk about Rod Dreher a lot more in the B-side on the Patreon. Yeah. So we'll get back to that fucking freak. I sadly did have to subscribe to his fucking Substack to read his pieces. So
I hope you put that on the company card.
Oh no, I'm free. I just gave him my email. I'm on his email list now. Is sadly what I'm not giving him money. Unless a piece I need to read is just that important from him.
More like a piece of shit.
Yo.
So
if you want to listen to us fucking dig into Rod Dreher and his time in Hungary, you'll find that coming up on the B-side. So I think one of the most easy to recognize ways that symbolized the United States and Hungary's friendship is the establishment of CPAC in Hungary.
Yeah, what the fuck was that all about? I only found out fairly recently that there is a CPAC Hungary edition.
Yeah.
And CPAC is, if you're unaware, the big activist conference for young conservatives in the United States.
Yeah, it's a very important conference. Whenever people cover like big speeches from different conservative conferences, it's usually CPAC.
Yeah.
So it's a very big established. I believe Matt Schlapp. Yeah, Matt Schlapp is, I think how you say it. He's the chairman of CPAC.
And also, like any other conference, like, yeah, the speeches kind of matter insofar as news coverage is concerned, but like what really matters is what's going on in the hallways and at the hotel rooms.
Absolutely. It's sort of, I think, always low-key sort of a cover for a lot of like donations and a way to just basically ensure that the right-wingers are always properly funded and get those operating costs. Absolutely. So this was established in Hungary in particular in 2022.
So 2022, that was the beginning of Orban's fourth term.
Yes. Yeah, that actually was. Keep in mind, remember that 2022, a lot of the far right in America were very demoralized. Joe Biden had fairly recently won the election, beat Donald Trump, and there was this sort of, I think, acceptance for a minute, at least, that the right in America, that wokeness won. Wokeness is getting out of control. Wokeness is everywhere. Joe Biden is bringing wokeness.
Wokeness must be defeated at all costs. Therefore, Donald Trump will make America great again by making sure that nobody has to ever say their pronouns again or whatever.
Yeah. And I think it's really interesting that this sort of really explicit pivot that I think I've always in my mind marked to be around 2022 with conservatives going especially in the very anti-trans direction, this very explicit anti-trans agenda is sort of postmarked exactly the same year that CPAC Hungary started. And this special relationship really materialized between the far right in America and Hungary. You know, it was always sort of there, but this was the point where I feel like the American far right spiritually sort of became the Hungarian far right, at least like how they talk about cultural politics, the culture war, all of these different things. Even Tucker Carlson in 2022, he was out there recording an episode of his show, and he says this about Hungary while he was out there. If you care about Western civilization and democracy and families and the ferocious assaults on all three of those things by the leaders of our global institutions, you should know what is happening here right now.
You should know what's happening here right now.
It's very important what's happening in Hungary. And, you know, Matt Schlapp, chairman of CPAC, says there's a lot about Orban and Hungary for American conservatives to admire. He has embraced their Christian heritage. And if Christian societies want to have their values reflected in the government, that's a good thing.
Wait, so he said Viktor Orban, has embraced their Christian heritage, meaning Hungary's Christian heritage?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Yes. So this was sort of like, I called it way up at the top, the blueprint. I mean, I think undeniably so. The MAGA second term, the blueprint for a lot of like their policy agenda and how they talk about the culture more broadly it's a very Orban Hungarian approach.
And I guess I know it's trite and cliche to even say this, but it's insane to me how clearly Donald Trump doesn't believe anything religious at all.
I know.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it would be one thing if he came by it honestly, like Mike Huckabee, for instance, who is an honest to goodness Christo-fascist, but he doesn't believe any of that shit.
No. It's sort of just an aesthetic that he uses to wrangle the different coalitions within his own party. He knows that he has to like say certain things to do certain things, and that's sort of what he does. Yeah.
It's just I can't imagine them getting behind anybody else in this way. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. With the B-side also, we're going to talk about Rod Dreher, but we're also going to talk a lot more about religion in Hungary and Eastern Orthodoxy than we are here. Because I think that is very important to still talk about is like the way that religion sort of shapes Hungary in this way. I mean, I especially when you talk about like the cultural manifestation of their agenda. I mean, it's sort of the inspiration for that. So today, Orban is out. New Prime Minister Peter Magyar, I think that's how you pronounce it, Peter Magyar, defeated Orban and very quickly found out that Orban's government would divert Hungarian taxpayer money and send it to the American CPAC organization to fund the conference and directly to the American allies. I mean, I think it was sort of always speculated that what Hungary's CPAC was of course, a cultural exchange of two very close allies. But ultimately, what it always fucking comes down to for a lot of the far right, the oligarch class, these billionaires in these far right coalitions, it's about funneling money to each other, between each other, to fund their fucking operations.
And this also raises bigger picture questions about like just the American electoral system more broadly.
Yes.
And, the way that pay for play works and international influence on our electoral and political systems. This is the sort of shit where I feel like imagine if something like this had happened during the Cold War.
Yeah.
Like from fucking Hungary specifically.
Yeah.
This would be front page news.
This is a big deal.
Every newspaper for 3 solid years.
Mm-hmm. It's weird how this is really not getting talked about. Again, this report was end of April, so it's been a minute. But this is a huge fucking deal. The way that money, I mean, we've all known this. It's nothing new. I'm not being original here, but the way that money influences politics, especially more and more these days. But I feel like this second Donald Trump administration has really laid bare just how much fucking pay to play and corruption there is and how easy it is. And it's like, okay, we know about this corruption. Now what? Like, we can't fucking do shit about it.
There was a point in time where you had to at least pretend to care. Like it was gauche to not pretend to care.
Yeah.
But now it's like, yeah, why even bother? Why even bother trying to pretend when we all know what's going on here? And that was one of Trump's signature promises too, was like, yeah, I'm a scumbag, but like I'm the scumbag who's going to be fighting for you. And of course, he's not fighting for you. He is only fighting for himself. But the sheer naked obviousness of all of the corruption at every level of American conservatism right now, it makes me nauseous.
It's so bad.
And the only way to weed it out is going to be through extremely harsh legal action. These motherfuckers need to be prosecuted, but nobody's going to do it because they are too afraid of the consequences of pissing these people off.
I really, really desperately hope that whoever hopefully replaces Donald Trump has the fucking balls that Joe Biden didn't have to fucking prosecute all of these fucking people, because it is needed. It is
yes.
Incredibly, it is like that, or it gets even worse. As if that like is even possible. It's really, it somehow is possible, I'm sure, but it's something needs to be done about that. And like a part of that also is the same sort of like when you were talking about specifically Donald Trump coming in, the promise of sort of just like the like might makes right, sort of like, hey, we're going to be assholes, but we're going to own the libs. That sort of like mindset. It is the same sort of, in a different way, of course, but the same sort of scapegoating of different communities, immigrants, queer people, whoever it may be, that is the target of the week. And like them doing that, the reason they do that is because it allows people without real institutional power, like the Republican voters in this case, they don't have personal institutional power, but it feels like they do have power because they have power over another class of people, trans people, gay people, immigrants. They can be like, wow, we fucking got you. We fucking owned you. They don't have to care about this like naked corruption because they feel that power of owning people, of owning the libs from the Republican Party, from Donald Trump, that it feels like they have that power. That is sort of that like fascistic promise that we've seen ever since Nazi Germany, I think, is what all of this is to an extent.
Everybody eats, right? That's the idea.
Yeah.
Everybody eats.
Yeah.
And the reality is that because fascism works the way it does, nobody eats. It's just that you get the small scraps, whereas there are other people who get nothing whatsoever.
Yeah.
And also just like in Hungary right now too, like I can't claim to be an expert on Hungarian politics at all based on the very clear questions that I was asking before. But what I do see, there is no electoral left in Hungary right now. The party that just came into power is a conservative party. It's not conservative, obviously, in the way that Fidesz is conservative,
right.
but
it's sort of like a center-right sort of kind of liberal coalition. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But that's not the same as the actual left. And the other party that won seats in the election is even to the right of Orban himself.
Yeah. Not good stuff. And thankfully, you know, the new coalition under Peter Magyar is going to be doing more corruption investigations about all of the different ways that Orban misused and diverted different money. So I'm sure going forward for the next like couple of years, we're going to just keep getting trickles of, oh yeah, Orban did this with money and it was very illegal also. And yeah, I think while, you know, there are critiques about this new centrist government, thank God they fucking won, because at least they can try to restore at least some like democratic norms, which it feels kind of silly to say, but that it's like it was really bad. Like democracy was fucking cooked in Hungary for a long time and still probably currently is to an extent.
I mean, at bare minimum, at least it sounds like they're running the numbers for the first time. And it will be very interesting to find out what they actually got out of this investment in natalism writ large as a matter of national policy.
Yeah, he said recently that they're going to review a lot of the Orban era natalist policies and sort of figure out which ones make sense to keep and which ones don't. So we'll see. If I had to guess, they're probably going to keep some of them, if not most of them. But they are sort of reviewing a lot of those. And again, to his credit, the new prime minister, he has come out in favor of the LGBTQ community. He has defended gay people. He has moved away from that like hardline Christian white nationalism. And he is reorienting a little bit more towards the European Union and their migration pact that Orban went against at one point. So even with the critique of the government, like probably way better than, way better than what it was.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's
undeniable.
That's a low fucking bar.
It really is. Yeah. Again, this was our first look a little bit more abroad. I think we're probably going to get a few more things wrong this season, a little bit more. So I'm going to continue to do my research, double check, triple check everything. But if we get anything wrong, please let us know. We will like address those and correct some of those wherever we can, especially on the B-sides. But I'm just excited to learn a lot about the rest of the world, because I'll be honest, I knew a little bit about Hungary, but I feel like I learned a lot more about Hungary in this episode, and that was really fun. This was really fun for me.
Yeah, I will always cop to being the American idiot that I am.
Yeah.
But it's our intention in this season to do comparative politics, specifically through a natalist lens, looking at the leaders who are advancing these policies. That's kind of what the season is going to be all about. So also, if you have ideas specifically for like leaders or figures we ought to be covering, please let us know. You already have heard the email a number of times in this episode, but again, it's illconceivedpod@gmail.com. Please send us some interesting and useful emails so that our inbox isn't just full of mold men who want to come on the podcast.
If no one emails us, we are going to do the mold episode.
We're going to become a home improvement podcast. Yes, that's right.
You know what, Josh? I think, you know, people always talk about like what would be the final episode of anything. Mm-hmm. I feel like if there is ever a final episode of Ill Conceived, can it be a mold episode? Can we do an episode about mold?
About mold remediation?
Yeah, for our final episode?
Thinking about it, here's the thing though.
Yeah.
We're gonna need an expert.
And we just have the right person for that. Oh my God. Amazing. Well, thank you so much, everyone.
We'll see you next week for the B-side and a little bit more about everybody's favorite weird pervert, Rod Dreher. And in 2 weeks for something, I'm not sure exactly what it's going to be yet, but I think it's going to be something about natalism in the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland.
Ooh, I can't wait.